Thank you for joining us wherever you are. This podcast episode is brought to you by the Old Ways Actual Play team. This actual play uses the 7th edition Call of Cthulhu tabletop role-playing game rules by Chaosium. This actual play is performed by adults and in an adult setting. While we try very hard to stick to language for all ages, listeners should know that this podcast may include mature themes. All content, including names, places, events, companies, and etc., that may bear resemblance to entities living or dead, is strictly coincidental. My name is Michael Diamond, and for tonight's game, I will be your keeper. Thank you for joining us again on another episode of the Old Ways podcast. I'm your keeper, Keeper Michael, and we return to Masks of Nyarlathotep as we journey to Kenya. So as we like to do at the top of the show, we'd like to thank you, the listener, and you, the Patreon supporter, especially. If you've not had a chance to check out what we offer on Patreon, you can at patreon.com/theoldwayspodcast. And now we will get to introductions. To my right.
Hi, this is Tiffany, and I play Meave O'Shea, and I have some reading to do.
Indeed, it seems you do, Miss O'Shea. There's a large black book that you'd like to dig into, I think.
With a leather cover.
Yeah, leather-ish. To Miss O'Shea's right.
This is Morgan. I play Lillian Lane, and I'm going to do things tonight or today.
Tonight or today, she's going to do things.
I'm going to do things.
She's committing to it. It's important. At the end of the table.
This is Jake. I'm playing Jack Doyle, and yeah, we're going to do things. Some good things, some bad things, a little bit of both.
Okay, sounds good. To Mr. Doyle's right.
This is Lonnie, and I'm playing Robert Drummond. And, this travelogue that they've got me reading hits different.
It does. It does seem to hit just a little different than the ye old travelogue. And then to Mr. Drummond's right.
This is James, and I'll be playing Dr. Sigmund Tattenbach, and I'm looking forward to once again getting off this bloody boat.
Yeah, you need to make a stop relatively soon, Doctor, because you have a patient that is still having a pretty serious problem. And last but most certainly not least.
This is Alex playing Saint-Berlin, whose brain is ripe for plucking.
And pluck it we shall. So we're going to raise the curtain tonight as we voyage to Mombasa, Kenya. But we're going to be looking in during one of our stops. So the vessel has to make several stops along the way. And one of the stops it makes is in a country we would know in our modern times as Sri Lanka. So in current day, it is called Ceylon. It is also a British colony. And it's one of the places that the ship refuels at and also takes on and off some trade goods. During that small stop, Doctor, you were going to perhaps look for someone who might have some insights into your patient's quandary.
Indeed, Doc's medical knowledge, while vast, is not without its limits, and he perhaps thinks it's time to think outside the box, or the hull in this case.
Okay. So you will say that you have a few hours at port at the very least to take a look around. So what might you be looking for?
Well, I think Doc is going to head into Ceylon itself and take in a few of the sights. Doc is at one of his cores. Doc is a traveler. He really likes to take in local cultures, get a bite to eat at somewhere that the locals suggest, and then he's going to try to find somebody who maybe handles more of a mystical healing aspect rather than a physical healing aspects. Someone who's into advanced meditations, or perhaps a yogi, or I believe they're sadhu or a guru.
Yeah, so the port itself that you would likely be stopping at would be Colombo. So you get tipped off to a temple that is not terribly far from the port itself. It's maybe 20 to 30 minute train ride, which you can easily hop a rail and get there. And this is a temple that is dedicated, a Buddhist temple that is dedicated to Shiva. a very popular deity. And locals tell you that it's a common place where someone might go to look for insights and to, in effect, ask for wisdom.
Doc thanks them very much, Dr. Shane, and he strolls on his merry way towards the temple with nary a care in his mind. I mean, he has lots of cares, but, while traveling, that's not usually one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Your arrival at the temple takes, again, not terribly long, but you find the place not so much. It's not as busy as you thought it might be, as some of the other temples are. The streets here are fairly thick with people other than parishioners, though. And this temple is also packed into what looks like a residential district.
Okay, so this seems more like a local residential temple rather than more of a big showy.
Yeah, this isn't something you're very much used to. We would just say European churches, that sort of thing, where
ostentatious.
Yep, that's not what this is. Well, not ostentatious per se, but what it isn't is it's not a space that is set apart for everyone to look at. This looks like more like someone would just walking down the street. Oh, here's a temple, and if I need to go to the temple, it's right down the street, and then I can continue on with my merry way. Not we go to this place and there's this enormous church.
It's more accessible.
Yeah, for sure.
Than a lot of European churches. Okay. Doc still approaches with utter reverence. He views every religion to be a fascinating subject and a easy hot button for a lot of people. So he always approaches with reverence, and he looks for someone who speaks English or maybe even German, but probably not.
Okay. You look for someone who speaks English, and you eventually find a young man who seems to be tending to the steps here, the couple of steps that go down into the temple proper and then lead towards perhaps an inner alcove. He looks up and says, how may I help you?
I was wondering if there was someone I could perhaps speak to at length about I had healing of the he points towards himself and kind of makes a swirly hand motion as if to emphasize the ethereal thing that he doesn't really want to call the soul because he is a doctor, but at this point he's really on the fence.
Oh, yes. He smiles. He doesn't turn back towards the temple. He puts the broom down and nods and gives you a wide smile and then walks into the street, like back out the way you came.
I follow him.
And he goes to the street and he says, if you walk straight down here back towards the coast, you will find a yellow house. And at the corner of the yellow house, there will be just an enormous and beautiful olive tree. Go to that house and speak to the guru there.
1,000 thank yous. He, Doc bows. Do they have an offering bowl here for the monks?
They have something that you could donate into.
He does so. And then he heads back towards the way he was told.
Okay.
Taking in every moment of scenery he can.
Certainly. It doesn't take you too terribly long to essentially head towards the coast. You walk about 6 to 7 blocks. And it takes you right along sort of an inner inlet from the ocean. It's a very small little lake. And on the coast there, you can see rows of different colored houses. Tiny houses that have all been sort of packed into the same line. And there's we'll just say that there's what looks like a British colonial wall that's been set up along these houses. It's probably seen better days, but all along these spaces, there are large trees that have grown. And at the end of the row here, at the corner, there is a series of houses. They're, again, probably no more than 400 or 500 square foot domiciles, but they're packed into a row here. And at the end, this British colonial wall has broken away, or perhaps never been completed, because at it, there is this massive tree that roots sort of grow into the ground like arms, unwilling to be pulled from the earth. And over top, there are signs that it is an olive tree. And just up the way, there's a yellow house.
He looks around for one of the, maybe one of the, just the bare pits on the ground, or one of the, not chewed on, but, as the tree will drop them or something like that, just as a souvenir of this tree that he realizes has probably been in this place longer than these people have. So
Likely, yes.
And then he heads towards the yellow house.
Yeah, it's a few steps. You see that there's a collection of people, 2 or 3 people that sit outside this house. And as you approach, they stand up and they welcome you.
Doc bows to them and Guten Morgen, my friends.
Good morning. You can hear the slight struggle with the British English.
He smiles broadly, at his own struggles with the British English. I was told that there is a man of knowledge about healing on the inside.
Oh, of course. You have come to see Guru Janan.
I have, yes.
Wait here. He turns and heads back towards the house. Another of the attendees, I guess they are, you're not sure what to call them exactly, approaches you and asks you if you would like some tea or perhaps some fruit.
A small glass of tea would be wonderful. And he kind of gestures to the cane. If you have perhaps a chair I could sit down on, that would be wunderbar. It has been quite a trek.
Of course. They find a light wooden chair, probably not terribly secure, but it is seemingly what they have, and they bring you that, and then eventually a small glass of tea.
Doc takes both gratefully and waits patiently, makes polite conversation if any of them decide to, although these don't seem like idle chit-chat kind of folk.
No.
And he appreciates the countryside, sips his fragrant tea.
A gentleman comes out probably about 2 or 3 minutes later as you're getting into the tea, and he's dark-skinned, white, shock white hair, big, full, down to the middle of his chest, beard. He wears a raiment of sort around him of white cloth in these beautiful waves. And then on his forehead, there are white stripes that have been painted horizontally. And he gives you a respectful bow as he approaches.
Doc arises and gets up from his chair and bows, and then extends his hand in a friendly handshake.
He doesn't reach to accept it, but smiles and gives you another bow and says, it is a pleasure to have you in this space.
It is a pleasure to be here. Your countryside is beautiful.
Yes, time is short, but the subject, much like the universe, is vast.
It's quite. I will cut to the chase. I have a very good friend. And then Doc proceeds to explain Jack's condition as best as he can. And he doesn't really pull any punches, because this guy really seems pretty on the level cosmically, so he doesn't feel like he's probably going to shock this dude too much.
So you give him the raw, like unfiltered story?
I mean, I don't, blood and guts, but I tastefully edit. I would say it's not the NC-17, but I would definitely say that, that we encountered something that was not quite human. I explained, roughly the things that we found, that men that were corrupted by some force, and that a good friend of mine had also been infected by that same force, and that I had tried everything physically that I knew of, and I needed perhaps his help and or teachings to pursue another way. I also explain a little bit of some of the things that I have begun to do in the dream realm, in the dreamlands, and some of the discoveries I've made there. And then I explain, as a means as to why I have come to him specifically and not like a doctor.
He listens to the story with an intensity that you are not familiar with. He barely breaks eye contact, but his eye contact is not overpowering. It's filled with concern and the desire to know more. And then when you begin to sort of unravel the more mythos portions of what you've encountered, what you don't get from him is fear, disbelief. He seems to accept that these things are true on their face. He doesn't doubt your retelling. And it's actually very heartening to be able to confer this information out and it not be taken for granted.
Doc almost takes this as a moment for the therapist to get a little therapy himself, and having such a rapt audience that is, so wise, he takes advantage of it and, kind of unloads some of the long tangled pretzel that the group has been on, so that he really gets the story out himself as well. But he brings the summary back to how much everyone in the group means to him, especially Jack and Meave, because he's known them the longest, and Jack has literally pulled his ass out of the fire a couple of times. So
you find yourself in an unfamiliar position, and that is becoming emotionally vulnerable on a psychological level to another person that is outside your bubble. And the redeeming part for you is that this man that you're talking with handles it with the verbal technique of someone who does it for a living, much like you. He's very careful. He's very considerate in his reply. And in summary, what he tells you is that there are things in this world that come from the spiritual lands that can harm and infect the body that we carry. Or he would say, the body that carries us. And so there are ways to rework those spirits out of the body, but that is a journey that you must take as a healer with that person and walk their spirit into a cleaner vibration.
Doc smiles and nods. It's good to hear it from the outside, and again, from someone who is a literal font of wisdom.
He gives you, before you go, he gives you a mantra to repeat during this process in a way to help bring that cleaner, purer vibration out. He writes it. He gives it to you a couple of ways. He writes it out for you in English and how to pronounce it. And then he works with you for probably 10 or so minutes on how to verbally pronounce it in person. And
proper tones.
Yeah. And the powerful part of this for you, Doctor, is that by the time you're done working through it with him, you realize like the rest of his little community is there around, like echoing him. And there's something a little cultish about it, because they all have the same sort of intensity, although they never seem to peak over him. But you feel good when you leave.
I thank him for his time, and unsure how to. I'm very Western in I like to repay a kindness with a kindness, but that makes it less kind. I ask one of the others if there's anything I can do to help the guru while I'm here as a way to repay, him for his generosity.
Yes, certainly. There are many ways that you could assist us. It could be time, but if your time is not available to be spent in that fashion, obviously anything which can sustain my master's home or his future here is certainly helpful.
Absolutely. Well, Doc makes a sizable donation to the guru. What he has left on him right now, because Doc is overly generous and doesn't really concern himself with money too much. And it seems like his followers will help.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Buy food and everything with it. And that's genuinely, he knows that's what will help the guru the most. So he gladly gives it and feels a little lighter in his wobbly step as he starts slowly heading his way back towards the ship, mulling over the words that the guru said and repeating the mantra to himself.
Okay. And then we'll move camera and let's speak with Sam and Mr. Drummond. They sort of have they have a thing that they're trying to work up into. And Sam, why don't you tell us what you're trying to accomplish?
So we've been at sea for a while now, right? How long before the first stop, we've had a few days, I'm guessing.
Yeah, first stop for a few days. We'll say at this point, it's probably been roughly about a week or so.
Okay. So with a few days under their belts, Robert would come to understand that really quickly that study isn't going to be as simple as like curling up in a nook in his room or whatever with a tome of like dark lore. Sam makes it a point to be present and study as well, like actively engaging Robert in discussion and doing his best to help them both grapple with the disturbing and disorienting nature of the material, like grounding, right? Like trying to because, well, sitting in the dark with these things is probably just generally a bad idea. But conversely, Robert would also find that Sam has a remarkable ability to be consistently handy with whatever creature comforts tend to soothe or energize the minds, whether it's like coffee or booze, a smoke, a snack, platter. He just always happens to have something on hand. So that's something that Robert would come to find very quickly while playing with these books.
Well, then maybe Sam can provide me with some answers, because that's the biggest thing I need right now.
Sure. So it sounded like, I mean, you can tell me, but it sounded like you wanted to know what's going on, how we got here, let alone who the hell we are and why we haven't killed each other yet.
Well, there's a good start right there. I mean, I literally got a cable from my boss about you coming in, and since then I've been on the run, and every time I ask about information or playing it safe, it's been, no, we don't do that.
We're going to take a little mental trip outside of these books to a place called London, England, where our investigators were fresh off a bloody affair in New York, culminating in the death of a great man, a seeker of truth, who I very much miss. Yeah, Jackson Elias. I wasn't with them then. It was Lillian, Jack, Meave, Dr. Sigmund, and a very practical American named Forsyth. They had followed some clues that led them to London, chasing this Black Pharaoh cult. And I'd only recently become aware of them myself. They were recovering from another expedition because they needed to, and I was called in from the field to meet with Elias, which was unusual. So he asked me to keep an eye on them and to try to keep them safe from the monsters wearing human skin that he would send me into the darkness to hunt. That was the last time I saw him. And one of his associates sent me to London to try to find the investigators, and they told me what happened. And their plans to, continue in the spirit of his investigation. So I guess justice or revenge, taste the same. when it's soaked in the blood of your friends and family.
So how do you wind up going to Shanghai from London and then we're headed to Africa?
Well, we purged collectively what we could in London. This headed up by some foundation curator, director, whatever, Gavigan. He was running the Penhew Foundation, same Penhew we just dealt with, I believe. All traffickers of just dark, the horrible, buried in the desert, remote islands, lore. In that fight, we lost Forsyth as well, in particularly gruesome fashion. We did what we could to cripple the Black Pharaoh in London. At least that's what the cult was called there. It was the Bloody Tongue, I think, in America. Well, anyway, the path led us to Egypt from there. So that was before we went to China, and it was in Egypt where we met a presence. It called itself the Black Pharaoh or whatever. This thing, that these people worship, that gives them power. It addressed us directly.
Mm.
Egypt is also where Meave became a bit more in tune with her patron.
I visibly shudder at that.
In this book here, I've outlined some references to Yig, I believe he's been called. He's like a reptile god, I say with kind of a little g in my voice. Matriarchal cult worshippers seem to prefer their men subservient and sacrificial, at least based on the preferences of the one that we really dealt with, who ended up drawing in the soul of a dead ancient pharaoh named Nycticris that the cult in Egypt was trying to resurrect using her mummy. Yeah, there was a mummy. Jury's still out on whether that was a good idea. I guess we'll see if she chokes the light from the world, but one monster at a time. But anyway, the cult in Egypt was run by a guy named Omar al-Shakti, and we did what we could there and lost yet another friend who made the mistake of being our guide around Cairo. He was devoured by a Goliath goo that kept coming after I hit it with an exploding truck. Whatever drink I have, I just down. Anyway, after the mess in Egypt, we turned our sights on China. And as you know, the Bloated Woman was causing all kinds of problems, and the web of lies and such threatened to end life as we know it. And so we hit it with a volcano.
And this is where that Penhew fellow was.
Yeah. He's been attached to this whole thing as well. He's one of the people that were part of an expedition that Jackson was chasing or following. They disappeared. So you'll hear them refer to the Carlisle expedition. You'll hear them refer to these kind of these remnants. The fellow that we're going to chase down now, that's Carlisle. He's the one that went into the pyramid that came out a little less than all right. And now he's, who answering some call maybe, who knows.
Keeper Mike?
Yes.
Would I know that name?
Would you know the name Roger Carlyle?
Yes.
I think it's a fair sight that you might know him, but what I'll have you do is make me an edu roll.
That's a 10 under 70.
Okay, so extreme success.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I'll say that you are aware of Roger Carlyle because of the sort of epic failure of the Carlisle expedition, which what you remember of Roger Carlyle are two things. Roger Carlyle is a pretty playboy guy. At one point was, schmoozing around New York. He was rich. He had a bunch of really, fabulous things. And then a couple of years later, you remember that he was found dead in Africa somewhere.
Okay, so we've been basically following this Carlisle person. Or you have. And he was in Hong Kong?
No. The investigation led us to Hong Kong. We were following the trail of these cults that keep popping up all over the damn world that are somehow not working together, but working toward an end. Look, when this thing that it can call itself whatever it wants, It's using these people and offering them power in exchange for something. The end of some ritual, they were going to shoot a rocket into the sky. For what, I have no idea. But these people do not have good intentions. They've done horrible things to people.
Okay, so what are we going to be doing when we get to Africa?
Well, we'll be on the trail of this fellow that we're after, and we'll also be looking for signs of activity. We already know, based on the writings here, that the Bloody Tongue have, at least we suspect that they have some there's been mention of like Mombasa and some of the deeper areas in the interior, so that they're likely there as well. We have every reason to believe that they are, especially if this is where this fellow's fleeing. There are no coincidences when it comes to these people.
So it sounds like I better get studying.
So I guess we should get to it. And as far as the company's concerned, keep in mind these books break minds. Okay, they will whisper to you in your sleep and draw out the nastiest version of whatever hubris you possess. So you not only don't want to read these alone and get lost if someone finds you, it's the only stipulation I have in helping you. We don't delve into these alone. What Meave does is her business. Are we clear?
Well, I understand a little bit more now. Thank you.
Good. You feel caught up?
As caught as it gets.
Well, if you have questions, it's not like we're going anywhere for a while. So.
Well, you say Maeve's business is Maeve's business, but when I saw her in Shanghai, there seemed to be a lot of attention paid to her.
Again, it's not a coincidence. She's entrenched in this world, and I don't know that she's ever going to be able to find her way out. But she's made her choices. So all we can do at this point is hope that she can hold on to enough of herself to put this thing away. Because I don't know that I can hope for much more. She's already decided what it's worth to her. And she's drawn enough lines in the sand that, as grating as the entire process is, I have to have faith in her judgment until I can't anymore. And when I can't when I can't have faith in her judgment anymore, bad things are going to happen. Because it's going to mean that she made bad things happen.
Oh boy.
Worse than anything I could do, I assure you. Be glad she's on our side, whatever that's worth. You know what? I think I'm gonna take a break from studying for right now, actually. Have you seen any cats on board?
I would assume there'd be some. I mean, they're good for mice and rats. And there's always rats on a ship.
Well, I'm not going to try to catch cats with rats, but I'm going to go see what the kitchen has.
What do you need cats for?
I look almost insulted. Really? I'd probably stand there, mouth open. What do you need cats? That's an odd question to ask in general. They're just a joy to have around.
I ask lots of odd questions. It's part of my job.
Cats are survivors. And I want cats because I need them to gather for an audience. Because I'm going to be reaching out to a cat goddess. And I start walking to the kitchen.
Okay. So, Miss O'Shea, most of your space and time on this trip has been spent sort of in a pursuit of something specific. And that is either a way to deal with things in a more direct fashion if necessary, or a way to find some way to protect you and the people that you care about. You have spent the majority of this trip at this point of that time. You sort of created a catalog listing of the book that you're perusing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is there anything you see on that list that of mind seems like something you'd want to learn? This question does not come without a bait on said hook, of course.
Right.
Because since you have been reading, there will be the skim sand loss that's coming.
Mm-hmm.
That's all baked into the cake. It's unavoidable at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to go bonkers, I just want to know which spell you're going to go bonkers trying to learn.
Oh, only one?
No. But of the list, these are the sort of, and if you have questions about any of them, you can ask me.
Yeah. Most of the call dismiss, I think, are going to have prices that I don't want to pay.
Probably.
What's the powder of... Was it?
Powder of Ibn Ghazi.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you sort of a impressions version. I'm not going to tell you what it does.
Mm-hmm.
There seems to be some a fair amount of prep in this spell. It does seem more alchemical in nature.
Okay.
So you might need an actual alchemy kit to perform this.
Oh, okay.
And it appears that this powder can allow you to see things which are not visible to the naked eye.
Oh.
It reveals things.
Okay. The other ones that got me were the summon bind, is that the Baki and the fire vampire and servitor of the outer gods.
So that's Bayaki.
Oh,
is
okay.
the way you pronounce it. And then summon bind the outer servitors. It's a spell.
That's a scary one.
I mean, summoning spells are always, we'll just say, dicey.
Well, because the vampire and the Bayaki, weren't those the two things we've already run into, right?
You
Fire
have
vampire.
Fire vampire you've seen a couple of times now.
Right.
And a Bayaki you saw Omar al-Shakti riding.
Oh.
Uh-huh.
Nice.
So specifically the servitor of the outer gods is, it's sort of like a grab bag.
Oh, so it's like any of the...
You call to anything that serves the outer gods, and it will come to you. And then then after it is summoned, you have to bind it.
Right.
And then it's your servitor for a period of time.
Okay. And then what's the Vorish sign?
So Vorish sign is, it looks like it's a series of hand gestures. It looks like it might be a way to improve the speed at which other spells can be cast at.
Okay. Well, it's definitely number one on the list. And I am not contacting old Gnarly.
Okay. So what I'm going to have you do
Mhm.
then is a couple things for me.
Okay.
So you're doing a skim and you're going to attempt to first learn Vorish sign?
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. This is 2d10.
It's 2d10. I thought it was 1d10.
No. It's 2d10. It's the Necronomicon. This is the big leagues. This is your skim cost.
Okay.
Okay. 2d10.
Mhm.
You lose 7 sanity.
Okay.
You will, of course, have to make the standard bout test.
That's 58 out of 90.
Okay, so you succeed. So you will have a bout.
Mm-hmm.
And since you're reading alone,
Yeah, it's fun times.
this is a bout that no one will likely see. At least you can hope. All right. Ooh, I rolled a 1. Okay, so it's not going to be very long.
Well, that's good.
It is good. Now the question is what happens to you during? Very fitting. You study for a period of time. And during study, you realize that the best way for you to connect with really any form of arcane literature is for you to begin sort of as you have in your own life, which is transformation. And so the quarters that you're in undergo a sort of transformation. You're not really sure when all of the additional snakes showed up, but they're here. And with them, there's been a sort of multiplication of the plant life that's available in here. It's a little steamier in here. You can't remember how many times porters or staff members have knocked on the door, but you just continue to tell them to go away up until you stop responding to them. You keep the lights low because they don't do anything truly for the heat. You angle a lot of the shades to help up the humidity in the room. It warms you up, and that helps you connect a whole lot better. You come back to something close to reality sometime later. Your bed has been mostly taken over by your snake brethren. And you're laying there with the book open and simply letting the knowledge that's inside of it seep into you. And you realize that there is a better way, a quicker way, a series of symbols with your hands that you can form to help speed magic into becoming. And while you couldn't actually explain it to anybody, you know what the Vorsh sign looks like now, and you know how to make it with your fingers.
Okay. I mean, all that makes sense. I would totally do that.
You totally would. Because over the trip, you'll be able to skim the book. I'm going to give you, I'll just say a portion of the CM points that will come from this. You won't get the full read points because you won't have time. But over the trip, you'll gain 6 points of Cthulhu Mythos.
My Cthulhu Mythos would be 45, but my permanent SAN right now is 49. But it would drop, wouldn't it?
Your permanent SAN?
Yeah.
Yeah, it absolutely will.
Or it would drop by 6.
It would drop by 6.
Still, it'd be lower.
I'm going to have you make me a power roll right now.
56 out of 83.
Okay. So we'll write this on your character sheet. You're now Mythos hardened. It is an optional rule in 7th edition. And we'll just say paid the price along the way. So your Mythos skill is above the value of your sanity.
Yes.
Okay.
By 1.
Yep. So what that means is from now on, all your sanity losses are halved.
Okay.
So enjoy your bed of snakes. So Jack and Lillian, how are you choosing? Are you choosing to raise any skills during this portion of travel, or are you going after something else?
I was going to work with Jack, or Lillian was going to. I was going to work with Jack on my brawl skill.
Oh, the two of you are going to play fight again?
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. I like that idea.
Actually, I kind of wanted Lillian to teach me French.
Oh, yeah? In what way? No, I'm kidding.
Oh, right.
It's a different episode.
It is. Okay. So there are some, there are the skill rules that we have talked about before in our traveling sections. So for the purposes of increasing current skills, you just basically are spending time. You're going to make a D4 point roll to the skill to improve it. The way we like to do it in game is we like to have Jack play the teacher role. And so you're going to make a brawl roll, sort of explain what Lily needs to learn. And then she needs to make an intelligence roll to pick up on that knowledge.
Okay, I roll first. That's 74 under 75. So,
jeez. Okay. Yeah. So make me an intelligence roll if you would, Lillian.
Get a 53 out of 75.
Absolutely. Okay, so Lillian, during this time, you can roll 1d4 if you would like, or I can roll it for you, up to you. And you'll add that to your fighting brawl.
I got a 1. Woohoo!
Yep. 1 is better than none.
That's so true.
Jack, is French a new skill for you?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a little, sort of the same thing, but it's backwards. In the sense that Lillian, you're going to make a French roll. And then Jack, because you're picking up a new skill and it's a language, I'm going to have you make an intelligence roll. And we'll see how you do. If Lillian gets a hard success on her French roll, she can give you an advantage die because she's teaching at an exceptional level.
You better pray. No, that's not happening.
Wow.
You just cannot learn French.
No, maybe that's it. Maybe I...
Just an FYI.
It's possible.
Yeah.
Yep. So try as I might, I just am not a capable teacher.
I kind of want to learn Latin too.
I suggest that Sam is probably a better French teacher than me.
I mean, he does, isn't it his native language?
Yeah, there's a big difference.
Yeah.
French is not your native language nor hers. Okay. So you learn, it's not that you don't pick up anything in French.
Just a few words.
You don't, for whatever
all the
reason.
cuss words.
Enough to get my face slapped.
That's right. In a nice French bar, some lady would backhand you, and somewhere down deep, Jack, that's enough.
Well, that's what I need,
Right.
really.
You do need somebody to slap you around a little bit.
Mhm.
I would say probably by this point in the journey, for characters not named O'Shea, it becomes fairly evident that Maeve has been MIA for some time in her room. I'd probably venture a guess, given the fact that Miss Lane is probably birthed fairly close to her, that Miss Lane's staff might mention to you, not that there's anything wrong, but that if your traveling companion next door needs anything, that they can just ask staff.
Has she not exited her room?
They look sort of submissively towards the floor. No, ma'am, we have not been able to clean the room either in several days now.
I've been a little preoccupied with other things going on. So, yeah, I go knock on Maeve's door.
Make me a luck roll, if you would. I'm going to see if it's during the time in which she's mid-reverie.
Oh, that's... I got a 92 out of... I don't have that in luck, so...
Yeah. Yeah, you knock and knock. There's probably a third knock and nothing. Maybe some chanting going on in there. You're not sure? But nobody answers the door.
I mean, she could be having a private moment with the doctor. I don't know. I haven't seen him either.
You probably would have seen Sigmund around the boat. You're traveling right now. You're not docked in Ceylon, so...
But I don't see him right now.
That's true.
So he could be in there.
He could be working with a patient. That's true.
I go to Jack's room.
Mm-hmm.
And I bang on his door.
All right, Jack.
Open it, of course. Oh, Lillian, are we supposed to be practicing?
Jack smells like whiskey.
The staff have said that they haven't seen Maeve in a few days, and I just went and knocked on her door, and she's not answering. I mean, I don't want to disturb her if she's in the middle of something, but I'm also a little worried she hasn't eaten or drank water or bathed.
Has anybody seen her?
I don't know. I haven't seen the doctor either.
I would assume that out of all of us, if he would be the one to have seen her, I guess we can go talk to him.
Yeah. I wonder where he is.
He's probably in his room.
He probably is. Doctor.
Knock on the door.
Doc comes to the door, sleeves rolled up, book in hand. Jack, come in. Good one.
All I want to ask is, have you seen Maeve in a while?
No, come to think of it, I have not. I must admit I've had my face buried in my own studies, but, I have not seen her. He takes off his reading glasses and puts them on the book on the nightstand. Perhaps it is time we go check.
Yeah, Lillian knocked on the door. She heard something in there, but there was no answer.
Well, this is not unusual for Miss O'Shea, But, yeah, you're right.
Apparently, the staff has said that she's been in there for several days and hasn't eaten or come out.
It's not as normal.
Yeah.
So they quickly walk over to Maeve's room, and Doc knocks with the head of the cane this time.
Mm-hmm. You knock with the head of the cane, Doctor, and sort of call out for her.
Maeve?
You smell something on the air. It reminds you of your office in Chicago. During the autopsy, that wave of sweet, sort of swampy air that came out of that subject.
Jack, if you would be so kind. He just gestures to the door handle. Perhaps don't break it down, but...
A little more subtle.
Yeah. Just a skosh, Jack, yeah.
16 under 74.
You stick the first lockpick in to try to sort of shove the tumblers aside and stuff like that and get in. And you know that you'll be able to easily pick this lock. I assume, Sigmund, you're like sort of standing guard, making sure that nobody sees. You pick this door?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
The pick goes in, and you can feel around for the tumblers and stuff like that. And as you do, you feel something push back on the other side of it. Like you get resistive force.
That's odd. I continue to work on it.
Yeah, you do. You continue to work on it. You can feel the tumblers moving around. And a couple seconds later, you feel something move on your finger.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you take your finger back out, there's the tiniest green snake wrapped around your finger.
What the hell? Look at this.
Doc holds his hand out very gently, scoops the little guy off of Jack's finger into his hand. Oh, look at him. He's a little tiny. Little.
Are you done?
What, Jack? I respect all life forms.
Yes, that's great, but this is a little unusual.
Snake, yes. Oh, no. It is a little, I guess, yeah. He puts the snake down at the bottom of the door, right next to the crack under the door.
Yeah, walks right back in.
I go and grab a hand mirror from my room, and I go to stick it under the door in Maeve's room so I could see what's going on.
You stick the mirror down there to get a view of what's going on in there, and all you see is that the floor moves.
Oh. I am not going in there. There are a lot of moving things going on in there, and I don't want to touch them.
You know what? I think Maeve's probably okay.
She's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doc literally just looking at Lillian and Jack and shaking his head. Really?
Snakes are kind of her thing, right?
Yeah, they are going to hurt her.
I suppose you are right.
Yeah, Doctor, actually, you would be fairly well aware, especially from your trip in Egypt, that she used snakes to protect her and you.
A room of snakes doesn't seem like a protective measure as much as, it seems like overkill, I'm just saying, Jack.
Well, I understand. Yeah, I understand that.
That's concerning.
So with those concerns, the three of you are going to sort of just step back and let things be as they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what we'll do for this episode. So thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Masks of Nyarlathotep. We greatly appreciate your listening ears. We look forward to entertaining you again. Thank you, and good night.